Luo Binghe had been terribly stubborn about certain things. He had instantly pulled out 2 sets of bridegroom's robes from who knew where, begging and cajoling Shen Qingqiu to put them on and go through the whole proceedings again with him, to bow to the heavens and earth, drink the crossed cup wine, and retreat to the bridal chamber. Shen Qingqiu found himself thinking, even if we put the wedding clothes on, won't we just take them off again later? He sort of wanted to laugh, but he let Luo Binghe do as he pleased. He really never thought that Luo Binghe would be the traditional type, constantly dreaming about getting married. At the same time, while it made him want to laugh, he was also overcome with affection, and he began to take it seriously as he too got caught up in the mood. Luo Binghe's own red clothes were half off when he started staring at Shen Qingqiu and lost the ability to move. Binghe? Asked Shen Qingqiu. What is it? Shizun, you look really good in red, Luo Binghe said in an earnest tone. Shen Qingqiu's skin was fair, and the red of the wedding's robes cast a rosy tint on his face, adding an eye-catching splash to his usual appearance. And Luo Binghe's gaze as he drank him in was even more besotted than usual. Shen Qingqiu started, then let out a light cough. Though Luo Binghe always talked like that, he was still rather embarrassed. He said reservedly, You also look very good in red. Very good was barely sufficient to describe the effect. He didn't believe a single girl could look at such a handsome bridegroom and not cry and wail to marry him. He was about to compliment him further when he saw Luo Binghe bring out a sheet of snow-white silk and reverently spread it over the bed. Shen Qingqiu felt an ominous premonition. What are you doing? Luo Binghe blushed. This disciple heard that this is the common rule for newlywed couples' wedding night. Before he could finish, Shen Qingqiu felt goosebumps erupt all over his body. Any other rules or traditions were fine, but this tradition was way too strange when applied to him. Shizun, this disciple swears he won't really let you bleed, Luo Binghe said hurriedly, red-faced. I just want to go through every step of the ceremony like a real married couple. Shen Qingqiu blushed. Let's forget these kinds of superfluous formalities. He was just about to take away the white sheet when he saw Luo Binghe looking at him, on the verge of tears. He could never withstand Luo Binghe looking at him like that, and now he couldn't bear to do away with the sheet. After a long time, he helplessly forced out a few words. But as you said, even if we lay it out, it won't be of any use. Luo Binghe looked hurt as he replied, But without this essential item and this essential step, how can it count as a wedding night? A beat. Fine, fine, fine. If you insist, just leave it. Luo Binghe promptly hugged him and buried his head in the crook of Shen Qingqiu's shoulder. Shizun, you're so good to this disciple. Shen Qingqiu forced himself to stay calm. When he looked at Luo Binghe looming over him, he felt faintly nervous. He tilted his head and closed his eyes. He felt a finger on his lips as Luo Binghe cajoled him. Shizun. The sight excited Luo Binghe beyond measure. Don't what? Don't call me Shizun. Getting called Shizun at this sort of time always made him feel like he had been rather too assiduous in his role as a mentor. If I can't call you Shizun, then what should I call you? Anything you want. It's our wedding night, Shizun. You tell me, what should you be calling me? Silence. Help me. Shen Qingqiu shook his head frantically. Lord Binghe was still waiting in blissful anticipation. 世尊, that's what I want you to call me, okay? To his disappointment, Shen Qingjiu clenched his jaw, refusing to open his mouth. At the sight of his resistance, Lord Binghe instantly filled with tears. 世尊, he said in dismay. We've already come this far. With difficulty, Shen Qingjiu sucked in a breath and struggled to say in a quiet voice, Husband. Lord Binghe's eyes immediately lit up. 世尊, what did you say? Shen Qingqiu repeated. Hus. In bliss, Lord Binghe called out. Wife. Save me. Ah! Holy fuck. Shut up. Don't call me things at random. But Lord Binghe didn't listen to a single one of his protests. 世尊, you're the best, he said quietly. I always wanted you to call me that. Can you do it a few more times? To Lord Binghe, his cooperation was like candy given to a child. 世尊, call me that again. When he woke up the next morning, Shen Qingqiu's first thought was that he wanted to smash himself to death against that extremely well-developed short-haired beast on Chéngqīn Peak. He swore up and down that he'd lost his entire life's worth of face last night. He absolutely couldn't suffer another moment more embarrassing than that. Lord Binghe lay beside him in high spirits. As soon as he saw that Shen Qingqiu was awake, he swooped in for a kiss. Shen Qingqiu suspected he hadn't slept at all, and that he'd stayed up staring at him the whole night. Pretending to be asleep would be pointless. He wanted to say something, but his throat was so hoarse he only got out a few slurred sounds. With that kiss, Lord Binghe seemed to have gotten everything he wanted. 世尊, get some rest. I'll go make breakfast for you. He was about to get up and get dressed when Shen Qingqiu mumbled out a few words. What is it? Lord Binghe asked. Shen Qingqiu's face was already very red, and with Lord Binghe's question, his flush became even more evident. He mumbled, Nothing? Lord Binghe wanted to press him on it, but he controlled himself. Then I'll go make breakfast. He carefully covered Shen Qingqiu back up with a blanket, turned, and got off the bed, where he picked up the clothes on the ground and slowly put them on. Shen Qingqiu sat on the bed, the clothes that Lord Binghe had pulled over him draped over his body, and stared at Lord Binghe's slender and handsome silhouette from behind. He stared at him for a long while, and suddenly, as if he'd been possessed, mumbled, Husband? Lord Binghe's body froze, as if his entire person had been nailed to the spot. He turned around extremely slowly. 世尊, what did you just call me? Shen Qingqiu's tongue tied itself in knots. Huh? He wanted to explain, but there was nothing to explain. This master, As they said, people shouldn't trigger death flags. He just said he couldn't embarrass himself any further in this lifetime. And then he'd gone and embarrassed himself more right away. This time, Lord Binghe hadn't pushed him to the messy brink of passion, nor had his heart been softened by Lord Binghe's tears. There was no excuse. That was to say, he had simply, for some reason, wanted to try calling him that. But afterward, he was so embarrassed that he practically wanted to dig himself a hole on the spot or bash himself to death against a chunk of tofu. In the end, Shen Qingqiu finally gave up on explaining himself and lay back down in defeat. Forcing himself to remain calm, he said, This master is hungry. Lord Binghe lay back down with him, smiling. 世尊, I'm hungry too. If you're hungry, then go cook. But being a bit late for breakfast once in a while was no big deal.